Alright, here we go with another episode of how to use CisusCraft. This is the new version for Bukkit. So, first of all, I'll show you how you'd ID a block now, or how you can select the different functions on an advanced block. So, what you want to do is you type /AI or info, and then the index number you want to start at. So 0 is the first entry, or the first variable on the block, and then right after that you can set the number of variables you want to view. If you don't enter any of those parameters, you'll just get the first 3 variables automatically that's on the advanced block you typed it for. So when I ID this one, you see the variable has PB off, L, and quiet on it. Now, if I type /s space 1, it'll select the first function on it, which is the L function, or left. There's also another function on it by variable called R, and that's what function is going to execute when you right-click on the fence, or whatever block you currently have it applied to. So if I type /s1, it'll now say that I selected MB backgate 1. And as you can see on L, for the variable of that advanced block, it's executing MB backgate 1. So that's why /S1 selected it. That's for left click, and S2 would be for the right click function, obviously. Now, if I wanted to view more variables on that function, like I was describing earlier, I can do 020, as I was saying. Now this will list all the variables because there's not quite 20 variables on this advanced block. But as you can see, it shows the X, Y, and Z coordinates for the positions that it's spawning the mod blocks at, and any owners of the block, as well as whether it's a pressure button, and if it has any special functions that it executes only when people walk on or off of it, which is PB on and PB off. Now, any variable on an advanced block can be set with /a space set, then the variable name, and the new value. So I'll set the owner to me, because that won't really modify anything on this mod blocks function right now. If I type /fi, it will give me information on the current function I have selected instead of the advanced block. Now remember, they're completely different. An advanced block is any block in the world that you've applied functions onto, and it does have some variables of its own, as you've seen, that let you change a few global settings just for that block. Now, the functions have their own separate variables and settings which execute when they're triggered by the advanced block. So the advanced block specifies whether you're going to be executing a function on left or right click, and which functions those are. So now when I type /fi, since I selected that function with /s space 1, it will give me the information on that function which is on the block. So I'll go ahead and list all the variables. Here you see I have T2 and T1. Those are the different types that it's spawning, but they're really not important because they were only used for function creation. The cost is how much money is going to be added or subtracted to the player when they use it. If it subtracts money, then it requires them to have that amount of money before subtracting. And if they don't have it, then it won't execute any of the functions on it. The key function, it requires a user to have gotten a key from another function. So there's a function called key, and you can specify any key name on it. So you can have golden key, silver key, whatever you want. Then when you apply that to a block and a player left-right click or walks over it in the case of a pressure button, they'll receive the key that you specified on that key function. So if I clicked on something like that, it would say, oh, you just got the golden key. Now, this one doesn't require a key, so it just lets me use it right away. And you'll see as I click it, the door just spawns and unspawns. And the way mod blocks works is it lets you modify multiple blocks in any locations in the world. So you pick both the block types. Each block that you pick are going to be swapping between. So I'll set one up right now for you so you can get an example. If I do /F plus or add, but I'll do plus right now, it's just shorter. And then I'll do test_MB and modblocks. Modblocks is the function you're using, and test_MB is the name you want to give your new function. You'll need to know that if you want to select it later, or, well, you don't really need it to apply to a function immediately, but if you made another function and wanted to re-reference it later, you would need to know the name, or go up to the advanced block it's on and type /S1 or 2 to select it. So I'll begin this function creation. It'll say you what key do you want. I don't want any key because I want everyone to be able to use it. It's this world, so I'll click on a block in this world. Also optionally, I could be typing in the parameters at any point instead of clicking. Typing it in, for instance, might require more entries. For example, with modblocks X, if I type it in, it's going to next require me to enter modblock Y and modblock Z, whereas if I click, it will just pick the position, the X, Y, Z position of the block I click. So there we go, it picked it. Now what block type do I want for ID for the first type? So I'll pick cloth. It's going to swap between these two block types. If the block isn't ID type 1, it'll become ID type 1. If it's already ID type 1, it becomes block type 2. So I already said type ID 1. Now I can click on something else for type ID 2. I'll just use this sandstone for an example. Now it's saying, what other block do you want to modify? I'll modify some sandstone over here, just so you can get an example. It doesn't really matter where the blocks are in the world, it will modify them, and only those blocks. So type ID 1, I'll make it a sandstone 2, and cloth. Okay, we're good. Now if I type in end, that will end my modblock function creation. This is the only function that works like this because it will let you specify an infinite number of blocks until you're done. So I type in end, and it says this creation was successful, and it's now selected. So I've test_MB selected. Now, if I go up to a block, I can choose to apply it or create an advanced block. So I'll be applying this function to it. If I type /A1, it'll apply it to left click. A2 would be right click. So I'll do A1, and afterwards, after the 1, you can type in a message that you want to receive when clicking on it. So I'll just use mod blocks, and I'll make it a color. Number E or an E would make it yellow. These are CisusCraft specific chat or message color symbols. So it requires 2 number signs, and it will replace that with the single color sign that's required. And then I'll say you use test_MB, and then you can also specify player color or the sender's color, the person that's activating the block, by using CS for the color of sender, and you can specify their name with just %S for sender. So now that's applied to it. If I were to ID it, you would see, well, message 2 is now, or message 1 is now the message I set. Message 2 is just the default. You can completely ignore that. I don't even have a function on it right now. If I right click, it's doing nothing. If I left click, it says use test_MB, and it says my name in my player color. Player's color, that can be modified by using the /P command. That lets you modify any player information. I can get information on a player just like I can in advanced block by typing /PI, the player's name, and again the number of variables I want to display. You see there's a lot more variables available for players. I have things like God, their current cost count, which specifies how many items they're buying or selling at once when they're using a purchase sign, or, well, assuming you have it set up correctly, you have to use %cc and then a multiplication sign times the number you want to be selling when you're setting up a function for it. But nonetheless, that's probably a bit too advanced for most people at this point. Now, some other functions that are, or variables that are on a player are colors. So, like I was saying, if I want to change my player color, I can do /p set Cisus, and we'll do color, and then the new color I want. So C is red, like 1 is green or blue or something, but I'll do C just to test it. And now when I talk, it's in red, and if I use this advanced block, it's in red. So I'll change it back to blue because I much prefer that color, and there we go. Now you'll see both blocks are changing every time I hit this. That's because that's the way I set up that mod blocks function. Now that's just some of the very basic information on how to set up functions, apply them, and get information on them in players, as well as set different variables. A player variable, or I mean, a player advanced block or function can have its variables changed. And they're all done the same way with /a, /f, or /p. And you can also browse them with I for info or F to search through them. So if I want to search through the different functions I've created to find, for instance, a portal maybe, I'll just use P because, well, maybe if I type portal, we'll see. But you would do /f space F or find and then the name. And it didn't return any matches. I'll try just P. So there we go. Yeah, see I have P test, UWaste backup, PM test, and anything that contains a P in it at this point. So if you can see if I type P test, it'll only give me that one because it's the only one that's matching that wildcard match. If I want to select the function that I'm finding, I can do /f space fs for find and select, or find select. But I'll just do /fs for short, or /ffs for short, then PTE. And then after that you can enter optionally the index number that you want to select. If you put 0, it'll select the first function it finds, or if you just leave it blank. If I put 1, it'll try and select the second function. It's only 1 right now, and so I won't specify anything. It'll just select the first one. There we go. See, it says selected P test. Whereas if I just do FSP, well, it selects the same one, but I'll do try D. There we go. So that's finding a different one with the first one I found with the letter D in it, which is Cisus red, which is changing a player's variable. And right after the function name, it's the actual function that it's executing. So you can see one of mine was spawn blocks up there, another one was a door function, and set pvar. Set pvar, what that does is it sets a player variable to anything you want when a block is used. And you can also do you can also use a setfvar function, and that'll let you set variables on another function. Well, that's most of the basics for CisusCraft version 4.0. I hope I helped a lot of you out, and I hope it didn't go too slow or too fast for any of you. Anyways, I'll talk to you later. Take care, everybody. Much love. Bye.